All right, hello and welcome back. We are here with the BABS Learn program and really excited to be, well, not seeing all of you, but at least being with all of you across the pond. It's beautiful here in, I was going to say Canada, but I have no idea. Canada's too big, but where I am, it's beautiful and sunny. And after this, I think I'm going to go and catch some vitamin D. But in the meantime, we are going to do some fun learning about vocal health. Before we do, a couple of things, and you probably know this already, but let's go through. In terms of our etiquette online, we want to answer as many questions as we possibly can, but we need you basically to send those questions in through chat. Put it in the Zoom chat, and if questions or if something isn't clear. My co-host Rob, hi Rob, will keep an eye on all of those questions, and at the end of the presentation, he'll read a few of those questions, or if a few people have the same question, we'll definitely try and hit that up. If you want to retract your question, obviously let Rob know, because sometimes in the middle of a presentation you ask a question and later on it gets answered. So if that happens, let him know. And of course, we're going to have as many questions answered by the end of today's session. But of course, if the session goes a bit long or we're unable to answer questions, or you have something more specific, you can email me and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Lastly, please keep your video switched off and your microphone muted. It just cuts down on the background noise for other participants and me too. So this is all about vocal health, and as I said earlier, if you have any questions with the last class, a few people have already emailed me. I love it. Hit me up at jordan.travis@gmail.com. You can also email, or I should say, message me on Facebook. You could go to Jordan Travis Music. Please like the page, and but in addition to that, you can message me and I will get back to you as much and as fast as I can, which is usually not so fast. That's the truth. So today's all about vocal health. This session, I should say, is all about vocal health, things that you can do to continue to strengthen your voice, to maintain great vocal health all the way through your life. And so vitally important, especially to us enthusiastic amateur singers who we just love singing and love to do our best. So we're just going to go through a few points, and these things really lie. We have two ages that kind of happen at the same time before we hit up warm up and cool down. We have our chronological age and our biological age. And our chronological age is something you cannot control. This basically means every year you turn a year older, right? That is your chronological age. But we also have something called our biological age, and that is by looking at a variety of metrics in our body and how it works, we can actually have a younger biological age than our chronological age, or an older biological age than our chronological age. What does that mean? How we treat our body dramatically affects our biological age. And of course, our goal is to have as low a biological age as possible, or at least hopefully lower than our chronological age. So a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today are things that affect your biological age. And by doing them, and specifically your biological age of your voice, and by doing these things, you can increase the longevity of your voice and your vocal health. So first and foremost, warm up and cool down. Your voice is a muscle, right? Your vocal folds are two bands of muscles that get used a lot, and they're quite small. So for men, they're about the size of, well, almost everybody, about the size of your thumbnails, right? So if you think about it, that the length, maybe even slightly smaller. And of course, the higher your voice is, generally the shorter your vocal folds. So generally, women have higher voices than men, and therefore their vocal folds are smaller. Children have even higher voices, and again, their vocal folds are even smaller. I say generally because obviously there are men that have higher voices and women that have lower voices, and people that are going through different therapies that change their voice over time, right? Which is always interesting. So first of all, warm up and cool down. Your vocal folds or cords, whatever you want to call them, are muscles. And if you were a runner, you wouldn't just kind of go, you know what, I'm going to go out for a 10K or a full marathon. I would ensure that I warm up, I would stretch, I would do things that engage those muscles. Plus, I would do it on a fairly regular basis. I don't think any of us would expect to be able to run a marathon once a month without doing 10Ks or 5Ks or out for jogs. We'd have to do those smaller things in order to do the marathon. A big performance or a rehearsal is like a marathon, right? 2.5 hours of singing. That's a lot. So in order for us to be at our top game for our practices, rehearsals, performances, we have to do those 5Ks, 10Ks more regularly. And that is all about warming up, right? Make it a routine. So prepare, schedule, and plan. For me, my first warm-up that I do is in the shower. I love singing in the shower because I sound my best. I was going to say I wish that I could video record myself and put that out, but no one needs to see that. And but I feel great. I love the warmth coming down, and that's part of my routine in the morning. Again, if you're with my last class, the idea of believe, behave, and become. Right? So I write down what I want to achieve and who I am. I behave in a way to achieve that, and then I start to become that. So warm up and cool down. Cool down is something we don't do. We usually kind of go to afterglows and sing our hearts out and then stop. But if you can, similar things that you may do for a warm up, do a little bit just to kind of bring your voice back. Right? Warm up and cool down. Hydrate. You have heard this all the time, and while I'm talking about hydration, I'm going to have some coffee. I love my coffee. So hydrate. These are things that replenish the liquid in your body and hydrate your whole body, not just your vocal folds. So water, herbal teas, basically non-caffeinated drinks are your drinks of choice. And I stick to water. I drink a ton of water a day. As I said, I love coffee. I know it's a dehydrating beverage, but I don't care. But I drink enough water to ensure that I'm suitably hydrated. So I drink my coffee, I drink my water. And a swig of water, when you're warming up or, in between stuff, that's not enough to hydrate your body. You really have to be doing this on a fairly regular basis. This is going to sound kind of disgusting, but for the most part, I judge it on the color of my pee. So if my urine is clearer, that means that I know that I'm actually getting a lot of great hydration. The darker your urine would be, and this is science, right? It kind of is an indicator that you probably need more water in your body. So water, herbal teas, things like that are fantastic, but anything that's a diuretic or a dehydrant, you want to kind of stay away from. And basically your vocal folds work just like anything when it's well lubricated, meaning keeping your body hydrated, not just drinking water. So there's been a lot of questions about singers' teas, lozenges, and things like that. Just remember that your trachea and your windpipe and your esophagus and your food and drink pipe are different, right? So anything that's going down your esophagus, right, is not touching your vocal folds or coming really that close to them. If it did, you'd cough them up. And everyone talks about the milk, coming out the nose, or basically if water starts to come down or liquid goes in, or food goes in your windpipe, that's when you're coughing stuff up. And it's very uncomfortable. So these things actually don't touch your vocal folds. So I know we love to drink water while we're warm, but if you think that it's affecting your vocal folds right there and then, it probably isn't. It might be affecting how lubricated your mouth is. I find that the more I talk, the drier I am, so I have to do that. But it doesn't actually affect your vocal folds. What affects your folds is staying hydrated all of the time, right? Drink that water, drink those herbal teas, until people make fun of you. Just keep doing it. Who cares, right? Humidify your home. This is an interesting one, and everyone is different, and every environment is different. I taught this class out in Arizona, very, very dry, and a lot of people have humidifiers in their home to make it a better humidity. But basically, what you breathe can help you sing better, right? So a lot of people, for instance, use some personal devices where you can breathe in, like steam things. Things like that are fantastic because that actually does affect your vocal folds. That goes in to your windpipe rather than down your esophagus, right? So unlike water or liquids, this actually can affect your vocal folds, right? And basically humidified air at wonderful temperatures or wonderful humidity just helps things stay supple. Generally, if you're breathing in drier air more of the time, it dries things out. You will feel it, but it also dries out the vocal folds, so you'll feel them a bit drier. As well, this can sometimes help respiratory health. So for some people that have respiratory problems, humidifying your home can help. You can buy individual ones. I've seen ones where you actually just put literally a bottle of water into this very small canister, and it kind of goes beside your bed, and it puts that out. Puts out some beautiful humidity. Everyone is different. If you use a CPAP machine or anything like that, sleeping aids, you can have ones that basically are humidified so that you're maintaining that basically suppleness of your folds rather than drying them out with dry air all the time. And of course, overly dry air can be very taxing. And I don't know if you've ever been in environments like that, but I know I have. And I find that no matter how much water, how hydrated I am, it still is bothersome and it's still tough. So humidity and humidifying your home or your space can dramatically help, especially if you're having trouble that way. This one is one that we as barbershoppers don't like to do very often, but it's basically taking vocal naps. The truth is that, like any muscle, you can overuse it, you can abuse it, and sometimes we need to take a break. So if you think of a tired muscle, so a tired voice, like a tired body or a tired muscle, is more prone to injury. And so what tends to happen is when we're younger and we, oh, I'm not going to hurt myself. We generally have those kinds of feelings. When our voice is tired, we may just truck on, we may push through, then we go to the afterglow and sing all those tags, but then the next day you really feel it. Now your recovery might be fairly fast, but as we get older, our recovery time slows down. And if we continue to do that to our voice over and over again, we could create some serious damage. So it's really important that if you have a tired voice and you feel inflammation, you feel that kind of feeling, you probably need some vocal rest, right? Other things that can affect and create more of a tired voice is not just overworked or overused, but if you're ill. Some illnesses increase inflammation, or if you're coughing a lot, that can really be harsh on the folds themselves. Allergies, again, coughing, postnasal drip. Basically, you'd be coughing or clearing a lot to try and get phlegm away so it doesn't go down your windpipe, right? So by doing that over and over again, very hard on the voice. It becomes overworked, fatigued, and at that point, you need to take some kind of vocal break. When we talk about a vocal break, this means no talking, no singing. So basically not making tone. I am not phonating. I am not trying to bring the folds together to create any kind of sound. And you'll notice I had to use the all caps, no whispering! And the reason is whispering is actually really hard in your voice. It's actually worse to whisper than it is to talk. So if I'm talking clearly, this actually almost warms up my voice. If I start doing that, Lots of air is pushing through the folds. Not great. Dries out a lot. Not good. So please, no whispering. Frankly, try not to whisper in general. But if you are taking a vocal break or a vocal nap, no talking, no singing. Really take that break. And I can't. I can't push this enough. And we're not talking just overnight. Hey, I slept all night. Take that vocal break during the day. Really allow things to rest. One important thing is actually speaking in a healthy range, and many of us speak in a range that's not helpful to keeping our voice healthy and supple. In fact, most of us speak too low, and unfortunately, society has kind of pushed that. So people say that people that speak lower have more command. So you'll notice that newscasters often speak lower in their range to have a little bit more command of the situation, more in their full chest voice all the time, and oftentimes too low. And this is for both women and men. Now, if you speak to professional singers who use their voice often, they'll most of the time be speaking in a range that helps their voice rather than hinders their voice. So how do you find your healthy range to speak in? So the way that I like to do it is I look at the lowest note that I can sing with fairly good quality. So for me, on a normal day, that's somewhere between a G and an A flat. Below that, bleh, doesn't sound good. So if I'm that's breathy, doesn't sound okay, I can get some clarity on that note. So then if I go up a fourth or a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hi, how are you today? It's good to see you. Suddenly when I start speaking in that part of my range, you can hear that there's more clarity to my voice. If I speak lower in my range, it's actually very wearing and over time tiring to my voice. So one of the things that I try and do consciously is just speak higher rather than down here in the gravelly part. Imagine this. You had a piece of music given to you and all of it was at the lowest part of your range, just sat there constantly. Would that be, I think by the end of that song, you would feel pretty tired, right? That's hard to do. The tessitura, or the range, is right at the bottom. If it was kind of a little higher, just in the middle part of your voice, you may feel like, wow, that feels way better, way more comfortable, and I could sustain that over a song. Well, imagine you have that opportunity every day when you speak. So pick a part of your range that's more healthy and vibrant, because that will keep your voice in just better shape overall. Let's keep going. Avoiding inflammatory substances. That sounds horrible. But basically, there are substances that we can ingest, that we can take in, that really do have a detrimental effect on the voice. So number one, smoking. Everything that you breathe in, so pollen, dust, smoke, all of that pass your vocal folds. And so if I am breathing in things that are drying out, that are hot, so with smoking you get the heat of the smoke that can burn or singe, all of these things can dramatically affect the tissue of your vocal folds. In addition, obviously we're talking about chronological and biological age, and for the whole, smoking increases our biological age versus decreases. So you have a better chance of singing more healthily throughout your whole life if you're not smoking. Now, for those people who are smokers who are like, you're a jerk for bringing this up, because I have friends that smoke and sing, and I get it. Obviously, does this affect everybody? No. There are people who live wonderful, full, long lives that smoke, and there's other people where it has dramatically affected them through illness or through their voice. And so that's a gamble and a risk. And frankly, for me, that's a risk that I'm not willing to take. So for me, I don't smoke for a variety of reasons, but one of those reasons is because I don't want to affect my vocal folds negatively. alcohol, and you'll see, really, do I have to? Uh, I enjoy alcohol just as much as a lot of people do. I enjoy a good beer or a glass of wine or a scotch. Um, but alcohol affects us in a few different ways. One, it's a diuretic, so you'll find that you get more dehydrated. So oftentimes they suggest that if you're drinking, have a glass of water in between. The other thing that it does is that it clouds our judgment. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's usually the late at night, we've had a couple of drinks, and that's where we overuse or overblow our voice. It clouds our judgment. It has numbing sensations depending on what you're drinking. So sometimes things just feel easier, but maybe inside things aren't that great. So it's clouding your judgment on what is healthy, what is going on. And lastly, I put certain foods. And many of us have what I call mild allergies. And a mild allergy is basically something that affects you a little bit negatively, but not enough for you to stop. So, for instance, my wife is allergic to shrimp, and she doesn't go into anaphylactic or anything, but she would throw up violently. She's not going to eat shrimp, right? Easy. Um, but many people find dairy products. So if they drink milk or have cream or any of that, that it dramatically affects them. It increases their mucus or phlegm, and they struggle. Sometimes very spicy foods, sometimes stuff like coffee, give you like that mild allergy where you have a mild reaction, but it's not enough for you to stop having that. Um, if you're really interested in your vocal health, and you want the very best for your folds in your body, obviously you'd want to find out what those are and maybe stop them. And of course, those kinds of things often lead to things like GERD, or acid reflux, right? So that would obviously dramatically hurt your voice. So sometimes removing some of those things that create those mild allergies are great. You have to choose what's right for you. In general, for me, I know the foods that and drinks that affect me the most, and sometimes I'll reduce them or not have them on big singing days. In terms of coffee, it really doesn't affect me other than the diuretic properties, so I drink coffee all the time, but again, I hydrate as well to ensure that I'm keeping hydrated, right? Uh, all right, big one. Sing well and sing efficiently. Um, Singing well is probably the best thing that you can do for your voice. And the more you invest, either through coaching, through feedback, through exercises you do, um, the better. The better opportunity you have for long-term vocal health. So you'll see that, especially if you're a part of the last session, things like SOVTs and flow phonation. These two things are probably the things that I talk about the most. How do I utilize my air in a fluid, consistent way? How do I create more efficiency with the vocal folds? So things like bubbling, V sounds, Z sounds, Z, using that straw, right? And ensuring that my airflow is nice and consistent. Maybe I'll do those prolonged F sounds or hisses to ensure a very steady stream of beautiful air, and I want to connect that with my voice. The more I do these exercises regularly, the better this works, and the more efficient my voice has become. When this pandemic started, I took a vow to myself that when it was finished, I wanted to be a better singer than when it started. I wanted to personally improve and be way better than when it started. So I'm doing these exercises daily to ensure the strength of my voice, but also to continue to develop my voice. And in terms of singing well and efficiently warming up, start lower, mid to low in your range, work your way up, work your way down, work on those things that you know are going to pay off big time. SOVTs, bubbling, v, zh, all of those sounds, straw phonation, use them, and make sure you're connecting that with airflow so that you have a beautiful, clear, clarion, efficient tone. And lastly, of course, you can take lessons or get feedback. And there are plenty of people in your area that would be fantastic. The other cool thing right now is you can connect with people over Zoom. So you can connect with whomever you'd want to work with, and they potentially would be able to help you online as well. So these are opportunities for you to continue to develop your voice, maintain wonderful vocal health, and sing well and efficiently. So at this point, I'm going to just ask for questions. You may have some questions or thoughts about vocal health or areas that we can talk about. And again, if you do have any questions that aren't answered or you just want to connect, you can find me at jordan.travis@gmail.com. I promise that I will get back to you. I also promise it won't be fast. And you can also find me on Facebook, Jordan Travis Music. Please feel free to like the page, but you can ping me there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the voice, about choruses, choirs, choral leadership, or anything. So feel free. Rob, any questions?
Yeah. First one is very, very relevant in the UK at the moment because we have a lot of high pollen counts at the moment. But any
Yep.
suggestions for dealing with the effects of hay fever on the general, like head, breath, sinus area when you're doing the
Absolutely.
singing?
Yeah, we have the same thing that is about to happen here, actually. That really affects me. I have found an allergy pill that I like to take over the counter, non drowsy. And I'm not going to promote any specific type. What I will say is find something that works. Here's the problem. The goal of these pills that you might take is it doesn't necessarily fix the problem. It fixes the symptoms that you're having. So most of them dry us out like crazy, and so I have to increase my hydration intake during this time, even though I'm taking this and it's because it's drying everything out. Another thing that I do somewhat regularly when this is happening is I have a nasal rinse, and it's usually a saline rinse. I will say that I used to have a neti pot, and I've went to a different product. I personally didn't like the neti pot because it was harder to clean, and so one I used it once, and I ended up getting some kind of infection, even though I cleaned it very thoroughly, which is hard to do because it has a very thin spout. This one is literally something that you squeeze very slowly. Water goes up one nose, one side of the nose, out the other. It's not pretty. Do it over a sink. It's kind of disgusting, but it dramatically helped. I was fairly sick a couple months ago to the point where I was so stuffed up I couldn't taste things anymore, and I had never had that happen. Went to the doctor. He said you need to be doing more nasal rinse. So I bought this new device. It was over the counter, a little bit of a saline solution, and within days it made a huge impact. So I bring that with me when I know that, hey, I'm going to have some trouble with allergies as well, just for flushing things out. I don't do it regularly unless I have problems. So I kind of figure that my body should have a certain amount of mucus and phlegm. I shouldn't be washing it all the time, especially with saline. But when I feel something coming on, that's one thing that I do. Yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Kind of with the opposite problem in some respects. If you find you produce a lot of saliva when you're singing, what can you do to kind of
I
countermand that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually sang my bass of a quartet before. He would have that problem, and we actually have quartet photos from stage where you can see like a little stream of spit coming. That's kind of disgusting. Uh, and That's a really good question. If you're over salivating or your salivary glands are kind of really producing, um, uh, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a great solution. You may want to do something that slightly dries you out, but I generally don't like I'm not a pill. I don't like taking pills. I don't like doing stuff like that. You probably want to find out why they're overworking. So why your salivary glands are really pumping out more saliva. It could be because of the adrenaline or nervousness of the situation, but it also could be of what you were drinking or eating just before. Maybe you have a ritual where you like to have, say, honey and hot water or lemon, and that's actually producing more saliva than you want. You could also, so you have to kind of analyze what's going on. But that's a wonderful question, and if you email me that question, I'll do some research because I honestly I don't know. I don't know why that happens to some people and not others. Most people get dry, but that's a great question.
And we've got another couple coming in here. We've
Yeah.
still got another 15 minutes left in this session, so
Fantastic.
10,
Yeah,
15
lots of
minutes. So
questions. Let's do this.
if you've got any questions, stick them in the chat. We've got plenty of time to go through them. How long would you normally recommend warming up before you start? You say you're going to do a chorus rehearsal.
That's a great question. So when it comes to warming up, my big thing is that it doesn't have to be right before your rehearsal or anything like that. That helps, but I try and do it throughout the day, and I try to invest at least 15 minutes to a personal warm up. At least 15 minutes to a personal warm up, which includes things like bubbling, connecting to my air, speak singing, things like that. I like doing it throughout the day, which keeps my voice in a really beautiful, healthy place. But I recognize not everyone's environment allows them to do that. So before chorus, I would say if you were doing little bits, say you did 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, before chorus, I would definitely start connecting into getting my airflow working consistently with my tone and really upping those SOVTs to get the efficiency of my voice. But if you've been doing this all day, your voice is warm, right? Your voice is active. It's been working. If you haven't been, that's a problem. And one of the things, by the way, that I've seen during this pandemic, especially with people that are home or environments where they're not as active with other people socially, you're speaking a lot less. And if we speak a lot less, then we're not using our voice. You're speaking, your voice is a muscle too, right? There's no different singing larynx versus speaking larynx. It's the same one. So if you're really reducing how much you talk, it could also affect your larynx. There's a great quote, I think, like, even if you don't feel like singing, sing anyway, kind of thing. There's not a song in your heart, sing anyway. And that's super important right now because you want to maintain that muscle. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it, right? It's not going to be there for you as strong. So keep that going. Yeah.
Looking at the other end of a session, do you have any more tips for cooling down the voice after you finish the rehearsal?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that you can do collectively. It's also something that you can do on your own. My warm up and my cool down kind of feel the same. Although in the cool down, I love to do things that are more descending. So kind of again, I personally go back to SOVTs a lot. It's just trying to find that efficiency. I usually hum a lot, NG sounds, and a lot of it is just descending slides, just to kind of feel that comfort. And normally, this is kind of, for me, it's on my way home. So, it's not necessarily the rehearsal's finished, okay, boom, cool down. It's kind of like rehearsal's finished, okay, I'm going to get in the car and maybe I'm going to go to the afterglow and hang out. On my way there, I might just do a few of these just to kind of reset the voice a little bit. And I find that helps a lot. Humming, but not trying to push and do bigger things again. Trying to do things that just kind of bring me lower. And sometimes that might be even using a song that I know that's kind of quieter or lower and not full throttle. And that helps me just kind of cool down the voice a little bit, just to feel comfortable. Yeah. Any other questions? That's really good.
Yeah, we've still got a couple more. If you're
Yeah.
taking any drugs like beta blockers to help with calming nerves, can those cause any damage to your vocal folds?
Wow, that's such an awesome question. Um, I have performed with and without, uh, and I've done that more to see the effects of what happens to me when I take it versus when I don't take it. Um, Personally, when I've taken beta blockers, I find that I'm more dry. So I find that has really dried things out, and I don't know why, but that's definitely a sensation that I felt. Um, I don't think that it has any direct, other than that, I don't think that it has any direct effect on your vocal folds themselves. It obviously doesn't really allow you to feel the same adrenaline rush that you feel when you perform without them, because everything is just more calm. Some people find that they can breathe deeper and easier when they're on beta blockers versus not on beta blockers. But I don't know anything that it affects the vocal folds themselves. And I'm not here to promote or not promote beta blockers. I know plenty of performers that use them. I also know plenty of performers that stay away from them. Generally, for me, I don't like taking anything if I don't actually need it, meaning it's not really helping my body. That's my preference, and I that's a personal preference. But you have to do what's good for you and what's comfortable for you, and anything in terms of those kinds of drugs, you need to be speaking to your doctor specifically about that, and making sure that the dosage and everything like that is appropriate for you. So this is not something that you kind of share. This is something that's very personal and that you should look into if you so wish. Yeah.
Great. And how does acid reflux affect the vocal folds, considering that there are the two different tubes?
Yeah, really good question. So what tends to happen, and it depends on how high up your acid reflux goes, but basically, uh, for some people, their acid reflux obviously goes into the base of their mouth and sometimes kind of sits there. So your glottis kind of opens and closes, allowing either air or food down. But even while it's not allowing, you still have to breathe. So that kind of acidity is coated and around. It may not affect your vocal folds. It could affect the things around them, but some of it can actually drip down onto the folds themselves. You cough a little bit, or clear your throat, and it kind of comes away. But it can create even acidity in the phlegm and things that do sit on the folds themselves. And then, of course, it's burning. So it's literally singeing your vocal folds. And your vocal folds come together basically like this. And if there's any imperfections along the folds, that can dramatically affect the voice. So, of course, if you're singeing or you have scar tissue on your vocal folds, that will dramatically affect your voice. So, I always say with people with that acid reflux, GERD, you need to get that checked out. You need to find ways to help you either elevate yourself when you're sleeping, so higher pillows, or sometimes you can buy things for your bed frame where it creates it higher on your head end and lower. It basically sits on these pegs. You can do that. You can take medication if you need to. You could stop eating or digesting the things that are creating it. You could do a mixture of all of those things. But for some people, it can wreak havoc on their voice. So really be careful if you are struggling with that.
Great, thank you. We've still got 5 minutes left, so keep sending in any more questions that you might have. The next question we've got is, how long would you normally give between having a meal and then rehearsing or performing?
Oh, so it's such a good question, and I don't even know if I have a wonderful answer for that. Um, Generally, I don't like eating a big meal before singing, and the main reason is that I feel like I can't get a great breath. So when you take an inhalation in, your diaphragm flattens out and it pushes against your internal organs, but your stomach would be one of those, and it kind of displaces them, pushes them down and out. And that's what we see when we take in that nice breath. We see the displacement of your viscera, right, your guts, in your tummy, right, and we feel that kind of comes out. If you've eaten a massive meal, I remember one show we did as a quartet. We all went out before the evening show and went to an all-you-can-eat sushi place and just gorged on delicious sushi. And we were warming up and was like, ooh, we couldn't get good breaths because you now have your stomach that's pretty tight, full, feeling like it's putting pressure against the diaphragm as it's coming down. It's uncomfortable. It was not fun. So I tend to eat lighter before a big sing, meaning a performance. But I know that it's important for me to have something in me to level off my blood sugars. So it's finding that healthy balance. I don't think that there is like a specific time limit. Generally, I'd say that on average, it's probably a good hour usually between eating and performing or singing. But that's just how life works. I'm not necessarily consciously doing that. But if you have some time to digest and just kind of feel a little bit more comfortable, that's really good. I will suggest though, if you're about to perform, don't go to a buffet. Try and just eat like a comfortable meal so you feel satiated, not overly stuffed. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, we've got another one here. Are there any other parts of your daily routine that you tailor toward within mind, keeping in mind your vocal health?
Oh, wonderful question. I'm kind of constantly doing things like mindlessly. So I do those exercises intentionally sometimes when I'm focused on them, but other times I'll do them unintentionally. I'll just be driving the car and do that along with the radio. I will. So there's probably a lot of unintentional things that I'm doing that help my voice. Um, I wouldn't say much else. I know the foods that really bother me, and generally I won't eat those before a performance. But they're going to be different for everybody, so it doesn't matter. For me, if I have liquid dairy, it bothers me more than solid. So, for instance, I can eat cheese, and it does not increase my phlegm or mucus. I drink milk or something like that, even if it's in a coffee or tea, and I can really feel the difference. So I stay away from things like that. But that's me, right? You could be like, I know other people who are like, I'm gonna drink a glass of milk and go sing. Like, good for you. I wish I could do that. So you need to do what's best for you. Other things in my routine, uh, I don't know. I try and speak clearly when I speak, even on the phone. I try and do that and speak in a range that's healthier for my voice. Other than that, I don't think that there's what I'd say is a regular routine that I do. Just those things. Yeah.
And last question now, is it possible to strain your voice while you're bubbling or doing SAVT exercises?
I bet you there is. I think that it's probably much harder. What I generally say with stuff like that is, if you're straining your voice, you generally feel that pull or that tug. If I'm going, if I'm kind of holding in the air and not allowing it, first of all, it won't allow you to bubble well. And if you did that with a straw in water, you would notice that the bubbles aren't consistent. Um, but it's much harder to do. So it's even hard to do that in the high part of the range. You naturally will. But the key with all of that is just feeling that things are more released. So when I talk about muscles, muscles are either contracted or released, right? So if you flex your bicep, it's contracted. When you release that muscle, it's released. Same thing with all the muscles here. Take your hands. I love doing this exercise. Put them just across your jaw and even your throat and your neck. And I say, wherever your hands touch, release those muscles. So just allow all of that to feel kind of gooey, right? Just release all of that. And then feel that release through whatever SOVT you're doing. Again, I think it would be very hard to strain your voice through an SOVT, but I'm sure if you tried hard, you could do it. So keep your voices healthy without doing that. That's the goal, right? By the way, if you're bubbling a lot with your computer, you may have to occasionally wipe off. I've noticed that I keep usually my eyeglass cleaner close by just so I can wipe off the computer. Kind of a disgusting thing to talk about, but hey, it's truth. Yeah. Any other questions, or was that kind of the last one there, Rob?
That's all we've got time for. Thank you very
Amazing.
much, Jordan.
Yeah, if again, if you have any other questions or things that are more specific or personal to you, uh, shoot me a line at jordan.travis@gmail.com. Find me at Jordan Travis Music. Happy to help you grow as a singer, connect with you, work with you, or point you in the right direction to get that help or that work. But stay healthy, especially during these times. Stay strong and keep your voice just going and moving and working. That's the main thing.